Hi everyone, welcome to the online class Kilora. I'm Lavanya. So today we are going to continue a new topic in GST, that is types of GST. Before getting deep into this topic, let's understand the history of GST. So this goods and service tax is a modern indirect tax system that has been implemented in a various countries across the world. So its history and development, which involves consolidation of different types of tax in a single unified tax system. So here are the few historical of history of types of GST going to we are going to discuss here. In the early tax system, before the introduction of this GST, our country was typically had a many or a multiple indirect tax which was lived at a different stage of production and distribution. So, those tax includes sales tax, a tax which is on sale of good, excess duty, a tax on a production of goods, service tax, a tax on a service provided, value added tax, that is VAT, a tax which lived on a value added at each stage of production and distribution. So these are the tax which was included in the early tax system. When it comes to the introduction of GST, its main aim or a goal is to unify this indirect different tax under one system. So they provided a more efficient and streamlined approach to taxing goods and services. So the main goals of GST, which includes reducing the cascading effect of tax or simplifying the tax compliance for the business, creating a common market within a country, or increasing a tax revenue by boarding the tax base. All these types of goals were included in GST. So they when the GST was introduced, they replaced many of the previous indirect tax. So here are the few indirect tax which has been implemented in different and many countries to replace a variety of other indirect tax. So there are different types of GST depends on a specific country, but generally there are four main types. They are CGST, SGST, UGST, and IGST. When it comes to the CGST, which means Central Goods and Service Tax, SGST, State Goods and Service Tax, IGST, Integrated Goods and Service Tax, and UTGST, that is Union Territory Goods and Service Tax. So the CGST is nothing but a tax which is levied by a central government on intrastate supply of goods and services. It replaces existing central tax such as central excess duty, service tax, etc. So this is one of the tax, a type of GST. So this was introduced in the country like India where there is a federal system, and it was led by the central government in intrastate supply of goods and services. The CGST, uh, which is Central Goods and Service Tax, it's a type of tax that is levied by a central government in India on interstate supply of goods and services. This means that when an in transaction involves in the supply of goods and services taken by a place within a single state, or both CGST and SGST, that is central and state both, are applied. So the main purpose of the CGST is to replace the various country indirect tax such as central excess duty, service tax, and others. The revenue will be collected from CGST goes to the central government. By having the CGST in place, the many Indian taxation system main aim is to create a unified tax system across a country which reduce the complexity of having a different types of tax at different level and producing a streamlining tax collection process for transaction occurring within a state. The main scope of this central goods and service tax is it is levied by the central government on intrastate supply of goods and services. And the application for the CGST is it is applied to transact that taken place within a state. When it comes to the purpose of the CGST, it designed to replace a central level tax such as central excess duty and service tax. And the tax collection will be the revenue which is collected from CGST goes to the central government only. This is all about CGST. When it comes to the SGST, it's nothing but state goods and service. It is a type of tax which is levied by the state government in India on intra-state supply of goods and services. So this means that when the transaction which involves the supply of goods and services which is taken place within a single state or both SGST and CGST are applied. Here the goods and service tax, which replaces state level indirect tax such as VAT, that is value added tax, sales tax, and others. So, the revenue which is collected from the state goods and service tax goes to the respective state government. The implementation of the CGST, which helps to create a unified tax system across the country and streamlining the tax collected process for transaction across within the state. So it ensures that the state government receives a share of a tax revenue from transaction happening within their judiciary. So the CGST is the main. Let's understand the scope, purpose, and application and tax process of this CGST. Sorry, SGST. The main scope of this SGST is it lives by the state government on intrastate supply of goods and services. When it comes to the application of the state goods and service tax, it is applied alongside CGST on transaction occurring within a state. When it comes to the main purpose of the SGST is it replaces the state level tax such as VAT and sales tax. And the way the tax collection is done, the revenue is collected from SGST, which goes to the respective state government. The next type of tax GST is IGST, that is Integrated Goods and Service Tax. This IGST stands for Integrated Goods and Service Tax. It is a type of tax that is levied on a intrastate supply of goods and services, as well as on import and export in India. This IGST is applicable when the transaction involves the movement of goods and services from one state to another, or from a state to a union territory, or vice versa also. So the main purpose of this IGST is it is a unified taxation, or it can be a revenue distribution, or a facilitating commerce. So this unified taxation is the main purpose of this IGST. Let's understand how. This IGST is designed to streamline the taxation process for transactions that across India state border or eliminating the complexity of separate state and central tax on interstate transaction. And when it comes to the revenue distribution is also a purpose. The revenue which is collected from IGST is the first collected by the central government, so which then distribute it between the central government and state government where the goods and services are consumed. And the next purpose is facilitating commerce. By providing a uniform tax rate of interstate transaction, the IGST helps facilitating the smooth movement of goods and service across the state line. So, promoting a common national market, this facilitating commerce is one of the main purpose of IGST. So this IGST plays a critical role in ensuring a streamlined commerce across state border in India. So simplify the tax structure for business operating across different states. So let's understand the purpose and scope and application and tax collection of IGST. So the main scope of this IGST is it is lived on an intrastate supply of goods and services as well as import and export. The application of this IGST is it is applied to the transaction that across state border or involving import and export. And the purpose is, as I told, it is facilitating a commerce, and it is a revenue distribution, it can be a unified taxation. These are the purpose. And the tax collection will be the revenue which is collected from the revenue which is collected from the IGST, that is which by the central government, which then distributes the revenue between the central and state government based on a formula. This is all about IGST. When it comes to the UTGST, that is Union Territory Goods and Service Tax, let's understand about UGST. This UGST stands for the Union Territory Goods and Service Tax. It is a type of a tax which is levied by Union Territory government in India on intra-territory supply of goods and services. So this UGST function similarly to SGST, but the applicable specified to Union Territory. So the key features of this UGST is UGST is applied to intra-territory transaction which involves supply of goods and services within Union Territory, and this is lived along of CGST on transaction that takes place entirely within a Union Territory, and it is also replaced by other indirect tax such as VAT and sales tax within a Union Territory. It ensures that Union Territory has a source of tax revenue from transaction across within their judiciary. And the revenue which is collected from this UTGST goes to their respective Union Territory government, which provides them with the funds from governments and development. So this UGST was introduced to bring a Union Territory into the same unified GST system as a state, which creates a streamlined on consistent tax structure across the country. So the main purpose and scope and application and tax collection of this UTGST is, when it comes to the scope, it is lived on a Union Territory government of intra territory supply of goods and services. When it comes to the application, it is applied in Union Territory, which is similar to how this SGST is applied in state. And the purpose of this UTGST is it designed for intra territory transaction within Union Territory. So the tax collection will be the revenue which is collected from UTGST goes to the respective union territory government. This is all about UT and all the types of GST. Now, let's understand um, a small examples with a demonstration demonstrating how this GST is applied in different scenarios. Like when it comes to the CGST and SGST, that is Central Goods and Service Tax and State Goods and Service Tax. Let's have an example. A scenario like a restaurant in Mumbai, Maharashtra, which serves a meal to a customer. The meal cost will be 1000. So the CGST, since the transaction occurs within Maharashtra, so it charges 6% of 1000 rupees. Then the CGST will be 60 rupees. And when it comes to the state goods and service tax, similarly the transaction occurs within Maharashtra itself, within the state. So that is intrastate. So here also the 6% will be charged on 1000 rupees is charged as SGST will be 60 rupees. So the total tax will be 60 and 60 will be 120. That is CGST plus SGST is equals to 120. So the total cost to the customer will be 1000 rupees a meal cost plus 120 will be the tax. This is how the CGST and SGST, here the GST is applied in intrastate transaction. When it comes to the interstate transaction, that is IGST, that is integrated goods and service tax, here let's have an example. A furniture which is manufactured in Punjab sells to a table worth of 20,000 to the customer in Tamil Nadu. So this is interstate transaction. So the IGST here, since it is a interstate transaction, the IGST is charged to the applicable rate, that is 18%. So your the tax calculation will be 18% of 20,000 is 3,600. So the total cost to the customer will be 20,000 plus 3,600, that is 23,600. Here the 20,000 will be the tax cost and 3,600 will be IGST, that is GST tax. This is how the IGST, which is interstate transaction, is done. When it comes to the transaction within a union territory, for example, a clothing store in Chandigarh, that is union territory, sells a cloth worth of 2000 to a customer. So here CGST will be 60% of 2000. Charged here will be 1000, sorry, 120. 60% of 2000 will be 120. So the UGST will be, instead of SGST and UTGST, the charged in Chhattisgarh, Chandigarh, that is 6% of 2000 is 120. So the total tax, that is CGST plus UGST, will be 240. That is 120 plus 120. So the total cost of customer is 2000, that is shared cost, and the tax will be 2000, sorry, 240. So the total is 2240. These are the example how this type of GST is applied based on the nature and the location of the transaction. So the CGST and SGST is charged for interstate transaction, and IGST will be charged for intrastate. Intrastate transaction will be CGST and SGST. Interstate transaction will be IGST, and this UTGST and CGST will be charged for transaction within union territory. So the next topic will be example for SGST and CGST. Let's say a clothing store in Karnataka which sells clothes to a customer in Bangalore. I'm in Karnataka. The customer purchased clothing worth 1,000 rupees. The solution for this example will be, so the customer purchased clothing worth of 1,000. Since the transaction which occurs within Karnataka, both CGST and SGST is applicable. That is Central Goods and Service and State Goods and Services applicable. So you have to assume a combined SGST tax of 12% on clothing, which splits equally between CGST and SGST. So 6% of 1,000 will be 60 and 6% of 1,000 will be 60. That is CGST will be 60 and SGST will be 60. So the total tax on the purchase would be 120. That is 60 of CGST and 60 of SGST will be 120. So the total cost to the customer would be the sum of the clothing cost and the tax. So the total cost will be 1,000 for the clothing cost and 120 will be the tax, and the total will be 1,120. The store collects both CGST and SGST from the customer and remits them to the respective tax authority, that is central and the state government. So this is the solution for this example. And the next example will be IGST. Suppose a manufacturer in Gujarat sells a machine worth of 1 lakh to the distributor in Maharashtra. Since this is an interstate transaction, IGST applies. So the applicable IGST rate is 18%. So your a manufacturer in Gujarat sells a machinery worth of 1 lakh to the distributor in Maharashtra. Since this is a intrastate transaction, the seller is in one state and the buyer is in another state. So the IGST will be applicable. So the applicable IGST rate is 18%. So the tax would be calculated like 1 lakh, 18% of 1 lakh will be 18,000. That is IGST. Therefore, the total tax on the sale of a machinery would be 18,000. That is, the total cost of distributor would be 1 lakh will be the machinery cost and 18,000 will be the tax cost. Totally 1 lakh 18,000 will be total cost of IGST. So the manufacturer would collect the IGST of 18,000 from the distributor and remit to the central government. The central government would then distribute a portion of IGST revenue to the state of Maharashtra, then to the machinery was consumed, where the machinery was consumed. This is how we have to solve the problem when IGST problem is given. The next topic is Union Territory in India. In India, this a union territory is a type of administrative division that is governed directly by the central government. This union territory are a region that are not a part of any state or and many have different level of autonomy compared to the state. They are often smaller in size and population compared to the state. As of now, the India has 8 union territories, and they are Andaman and Nicobar Island, Chhattisgarh, Dada and Nagara Haveri and Diu Andaman, Lakshadweep, Delhi, Puducherry, Ladakh, and Jammu and Kashmir. So, this Andaman and Nicobar Island is a group of islands which is located in the Bay of Bengal, which is known for their natural beauty and biodiversity. This is also one of the union territory in India. And when it comes to the Chandigarh, a planned city that serves as joint capital of state of Punjab and Haryana. And when it comes to the Lakshadweep, here it is the smallest island in Arabian Sea, known for a coral reef and marine life. And the next union territory is Diu and Daman, now merged with UT of Dadra and Nagar Haveri and Diu and Daman. These both has been merged recently. So, a union territory which is formed by the merge of Dada and Nagar Haveri and Diu and Daman, which is located on the western coast of India. And when it comes to the next union territory, that is Puducherry, here a coastal union territory which consists of several enclaves in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Kerala. It is also called as Pondicherry. And the next union territory of India is Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir, which is newly formed UT, that is Union Territory. So this Ladakh and Union Territory, which is formed by separating it from the state of Jammu and Kashmir, now for its union culture and landscape. And this Jammu and Kashmir is a union territory which is formed after the purification of the former state of Jammu and Kashmir. It includes the region of Jammu and Kashmir. So this Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir is newly formed UT. And the last union territory will be Delhi. That is a national capital of India, which is a union territory with a special status as a capital and has its own legislative assembly. So these are the 8 union territories in India which you have to be aware of this union territory while solving a problem which is related to UT, GST, and IGST. In India, this union territory has special administrative region which is governed directly by central government. So this union territory may have varying degrees of autonomy with some having their own legislative assemblies. So for example, Delhi and Puducherry. When this transaction occurs with a union territory, both CGST and UTGST are applied similarly to how the CGST and SGST are applied in state. So, this how this UTGST works in union territory, like let's have few points. So, when it comes to the tax structure, your UTGST is charged as long aside of CGST on intra-territory transaction is the transaction within the union territory, and when it comes to the application, the rate of UTGST is usually the same as CGST rate. For example, if the CGST rate is 6% on product, the UTGST rate will be also 6%, which makes the total tax rate 12%. That is 6% CGST and 6% UTGST. And the next point will be the tax collection. Here, the business collects both CGST, UTGST from the customer and remits them separately to the central and union territory government. For example, as I told, if the clothing store in Chandigarh, that is a union territory, sells a dress worth of 2000 and the GST rate is 12%. You have the 6% CGST and 6% UTGST. That is CGST will be 6% of 2000 will be 60, 120, and UTGST is CG 6% of 2000 will be 120. So the total store will collect the total taxes 240 from the customer, compromising 120 CGST and 120 UTGST are remit the respective taxes of the appropriate authority. So this tax structure helps in maintaining a unified tax system and supports the financial needs of the union territory. So this is how the union territory in India helps in, or how this UTGST works in union territory. Thank you.